One. And welcome back to Zombie SquadCAST. And today I got Jordan Miller on the show. And I worked with Jordan on a number of feature films, actually.
Yeah.
Till Curtain Call and Sunday Night Dinner Party.
Yeah.
Yep. And for those, you were sound, boom operator and sound mixer, sound designer. But you're also a filmmaker. You've got a horror podcast.
Right.
Camp Horror?
Camp Nightmare.
Camp Nightmare. Thank you.
Yeah.
Camp Nightmare, which sounds really, really awesome. So Jordan, go ahead. Tell us a little bit about who you are, what you do, and what you've been up to.
Yeah. Well, like you said, man, I've worked on a lot of films in a lot of different ways. So I've worked on, like, every time I worked with you, I was running sound. I had a microphone in my hand. So I've done that with a lot of movies, but I've written and directed a number of my own. Actually, Deontay Jenkins is our friend who was directing both of those features that you just talked about, Curtain Call and Dinner Party. The reason I met him, so is the reason I met you, was he was assistant director. He was my assistant director on my first feature film, my only feature film so far, called The Red Effect. And that's out on like Tubi TV and some other platforms. And since then, I've made a number of shorts. I made a short horror film called 3 that won a number of awards at different festivals in 2018, Nightmares Fest, some other ones. And then since then, I've made 2 segments. We've been working on another feature film for like 2 years now. And obviously COVID really held us up with that. And it's a feature-length horror anthology film, sort of like down the line of like, VHS or like Tales from the Crypt, maybe.
Yeah. Like a one feature film comprised of 3 to 4 short films.
Totally. Yeah, exactly. And so I've wrote and directed 2 of those short segments that I've produced over the past couple of years. And this was supposed to be the year to finally like shoot the top layer narrative to glue everything together and have a feature film. But that was supposed to be May, and clearly that didn't happen. Right now we're shooting for October, but who knows what's going to happen in October. But if you don't plan to do it, you'll never do it. So we're going to try the best we can. So yeah, I've made a number of shorts and working on another feature. I've been writing a lot of stuff. So I have a feature script that's out in festivals right now, which is like the worst time to be in festivals ever, but it's out there, either way. And like you said, I host a horror podcast called Camp Nightmare. Our stuff comes out weekly. It's a mixture of a lot of different stuff. We do like subgenre breakdowns. Like our last episode broke down the subgenre of folk horror, which is stuff like the original Wicker Man or like Midsummer, The Witch, stuff like that. Even Children of the Corn. But we do like franchise breakdowns. We've had, do interviews. We've had interviews with like Tom Woodruff Jr., who's a Oscar-winning effects artist who built like the Alien and Predator and a bunch of other great stuff. He's the guy in the suit in a lot of Alien movies too. He builds it and gets in it. Andy from Child's Play was on the show. Actually, we did a great episode with Ed Sanchez, a local filmmaker who made Blair Witch Project. He was great. Actually came into the studio and hung out with us. Sometimes we have original horror stories. We're kind of all over the place. We have a lot of different stuff. It's fun.
Yeah. So do you try to experiment with, say, ideas like, for example, Kevin Smith, he started talking on his podcast. He started talking about this weird article he read, and a year ago it turned into Husk.
Right.
Tusk. So Tusk, that's what it was.
Yeah.
Tusk. So do you guys like dabble in that sort of,
we definitely do. I mean, we kind of like go off on a lot of tangents. So sometimes we'll just come up with an idea and then we're like, boom, we're into like a fake film plot. And we just start talking about this, we just follow the thread as long as it'll take us really until we're bored by it. But we do have this long running reoccurring idea for like a pilot of a TV show we want to at least write and then do an episode down the line where we get some actor friends together, when things are safer, obviously, and do like a live table read of the pilot episode for a whole episode of the podcast. So our concept is, are you familiar with the 80s movie Monster Squad?
Oh yeah.
So it's like all the Universal monsters all together. It looks great. Actually, Tom Woodruff Jr. is Gillman in that one.
Okay.
But so our idea is Monster Squadron SUV.
Okay.
And it's like 70s cop drama, but all the cops are like the Universal monsters, right? And we follow Detective Wolfman and Gilman. And they're they're the protagonists. And so we frequently will like come up with like plot line ideas for that. And one day it'll actually solidify into something. We'll get our table read episode.
Yeah, that's awesome. That sounds hilarious. Yeah. So that I guess that leads me into my next point, which
Yeah.
is, and you kind of brushed upon it. How have you been affected by this COVID? Hopefully not infected. I almost said infected. How have you been affected by, the current state of affairs and quarantining, shelter in place? I mean, the good thing is you just mentioned the podcast. So that's, as you can see, that's something, that I picked up, and you've got that as well.
Yeah, I mean, luckily I've only been affected. I haven't been infected. But it's kind of affected everything. I mean, even with the podcast, we had been going for some time before all this stuff hit.
Mm-hmm.
And so we had to scramble really quick to figure out like how we can keep doing it, at the quality that we've been doing it. So what ended up happening was obviously because I've done location sound on films, I've got various portable recorders. So like when shit started going down, I can say shit, right? I can swear on this.
Yeah, that's fine. Shit,
Great.
fucking all that. Yeah. I mean, you don't have to say it every other word, but yeah, it's fine. It's fine.
I do have to, actually.
Good. I kind of want to too. I mean, just being trapped in the house. I mean, I love my wife, I love my kid, but sometimes it's like,
sometimes you got to go in the bathroom door and stuff a towel at the bottom and close it and just start screaming obscenities. I get it. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, totally. Turn off the light. Yeah. But so like when things started really going down, I dropped off a microphone and a portable recorder and some cables over at my co-host's house, and we've just done this, the whole time since. He records his thing on his end, I record into the studio, and he sends it over here, and I mix it, and we get it out every week. And it's been easier to get guests even. I mean, like we've just reached out to a couple people, and everyone's just sitting at home, so like exactly what's happening right here. Everyone's at home, so might as well chat, right?
Yeah.
So people have been on the podcast, but filmmaking, man, that's all dried up. Like it's starting to like pick back up now, with social distancing and safety, as the number one priority. But all commercial shoots just started canceling, obviously, since April. Like our own film, Black Hills, is trying to hopefully regroup for October.
Yeah.
But I mean, it was something that I was talking about with another director on a podcast. He had said that someone had told him, I don't know what you're making, but I guarantee you like 3 to 6 months of more pre-production is not going to hurt you. And that's kind of the truth. So I think like the best thing you can do is just prepare more, or just think harder, do as much pre-production as you can, use that time to write, which is what I've been doing a lot. If I can't go out and shoot stuff, I've been like writing a lot of short stories, some for the podcast, some for like maybe who knows what, refining scripts. Like all of these things are like super important. Like the thing that I already knew I wanted to shoot next, I had been sitting on this script that I was pretty sure was done already, but we hit COVID and quarantine. So I just revisited it again and started thinking on it. I'm like, listen, I got nothing but time. Like, is there any way to make this thing better? And I've actually found a way to unlock a new layer to that story that I'm way more excited about now. And that would have never happened if I was just still on like the track of just go.
Absolutely. Yeah. And, me and some partners, we had a couple of side projects, and they were, I'm not sure if you've seen on my channel, Rogues Gallery and Sinister Infinite, and they're like, and it's funny you mentioned SVU, but these shows are kind of shot in the vein of like America's Most Wanted, those
right.
ID shows, those really, low budget ID shows, but one set in DC Universe, one set in Marvel Universe. And I've mentioned this on the podcast before, where really, I just set up a green screen right here in the studio. I shot, I filmed a bunch of guys reading scripts for maybe a whole day. And yeah, they had to come over, but that was right before COVID. But I guess I was lucky because I just had everything in the can on the hard drive ready to edit. And so the first month, I think it was from March 15th to April 15th, I just cut both seasons. And still it's steadily coming out one episode every Friday on the channel. But
that's great. Yeah, use that time for post.
Exactly.
Just lock yourself in and edit.
I use the whole thing, and still I have a short film, Fear This, where I actually want to talk about the film because I was talking to you about maybe doing sound on Fear This, but like 2 years ago, and then I remember that. And then you had to drop out and go to a film festival. So I want to talk about that film and how that how your festival went with the film. But we still got Fear This. We still got Fear This done. I still have to edit that. Because me and the wife recently had a kid, but between the time of shooting, thank you. But between this time of shooting the film and, and 2 years later getting married, and a year later having a kid, and then being quarantined, it was just so many. But before the quarantine, it was just so many on-set gigs. It was like, I got to get around to Fear This, and now this is the opportunity. I have 2 documentaries that I have to finish up, and so another thing that I was considering looking into, trying to figure out how to do, is motion comics. Are you familiar with motion comics?
No.
So, well, if you were to go on YouTube, I mean, it's not there. There's a number of them on YouTube. There's a Superman. There's a couple of Superman motion comics up. I don't know if it's Punisher or Crossbones. I think it's a Punisher and Crossbones crossover story arc, but it's shot graphically and animated in such a way that it's a motion comic. So it's
okay. I feel like I've probably seen one of these. I might not be familiar with the term, but
yeah, I'm sure you've seen.
Are they more or less like moving storyboards, kind of? Just they're like not full animation, but like characters are moving slightly. Right. Yeah, right. Okay, I know what you mean.
But they have sound effects. They have voiceovers and all that stuff. Yeah, so
cool. Yeah, I know what you mean.
And so, you know, I have 2 more short scripts that they're done. They're ready to shoot. But when are we going to shoot them? So I figured maybe I could dabble somehow into this half animation, half kind of, you know, adding motion or animation to still photos, and kind of, you know, working with that somehow, and making motion comics or motion graphic novels or something.
That's great. I mean, I think like those are the things that are popping up now, because all the creatives are doing exactly this. They're like, okay, I can't do my thing. Like, how can I figure out the 21st century equivalent of doing my thing? You know, so it's like it's motion comics. It's musicians live streaming their concerts from their living rooms instead of from venues. You know, that kind of stuff is all popping up now more than ever. I mean, look at Maryland. We went from having like the strictest alcohol laws of like almost any state to like 2 days later, like anybody could just deliver all this booze to my front door. You know.
Yeah. So basically what happens is, if you have an account on Grubhub or Uber Eats or whatever, and you check that box, I am of age, you've signed a legal document. So now the restaurant is not necessarily, I mean, who knows what someone might try to pull off, but the restaurant is not really at risk. It's the user violating those terms, and they'll get hit with a fine, or who knows whose account. Right. And so if something kind of, you know, dings back to the restaurant or to the liquor store or whatever the case, they're saying, nope, this person swore an oath. You know, they signed it. They said they
on their mother's grave.
So, yeah. And it's great, man. Like, sometimes me and the wife will get like a big jug of margarita and just, it's awesome.
Oh yeah. Just delivered right to your door.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, exactly. But I was going to mention, did you ever see Red versus Blue? Are you familiar with Red versus Blue?
What is that? Beyond politics? No, I'm not.
No, it's not. It's not politics. No. So so a bunch of players of Halo, you know, played it online, and then there was a director, and they made the characters do different things, and like look up and down to like nod, or look left and right to shake their head no. And they made this online series. They made a whole web series with a story, with voiceover, with all sorts of stuff. But the way they did it, and they did this 15 years ago, I think, maybe, 05, maybe 03, 04, or 5. I know I had graduated college by the time I saw this. I think I was at Discovery Channel, working at Discovery Channel at the time. And a buddy of mine sent this to me, and I said, "This is genius."
It's free just animation.
It's just a bunch. Yeah, it's just a bunch of dudes playing Halo online. And you know how you can spectate games?
Honestly, I've never really played Halo. I've never had an Xbox. So I've like been that one dude who didn't know Halo. All my buddies would kick my ass in the game, like relentlessly.
And you're just like, forget it.
I was just like, I hate you guys.
Not in the mood.
Leave.
Yeah. Well, so, you know, you can also join an online game and just spectate, and kind of, it's like you have like back then, it looked like what we have drones now.
Okay.
But in the video game, right? So you can fly.
That's more my speed in Halo, is I'll be in the drone watching everybody.
Right.
Judging from afar.
But that's what they used as their camera. I guess they would record the screen or whatever, but that was their camera. But somebody, you know, was on a headset, you know, telling everybody else, okay, run and shoot up the guy in pink or whatever. And they found a way to make a complete series over a span of 10 years. It's called Red versus Blue. And they use the game Halo as like, you know, everything, the props, the set, the actors, everything was the game.
Literally
Halo.
everything. And then what, they just do voiceover like for the characters?
And they eventually, I guess they went back and they did voiceovers and they cut down and they spliced down all the footage. And
it's brilliant.
Yeah. And I'm sure they added more sound effects to what was already sound effects in the game. And
yeah.
So it's definitely something to check out. But I mean, looking back, like that's kind of the creativity we need to be jumping on, like more motion comics and more like Red versus Blue type productions. Definitely. I think Red versus Blue was bought by Netflix. I think the whole thing.
Oh, wow. Good for them.
I think the whole thing is now so when back in 05, you know, it was 5-minute episodes or 10-minute episodes coming out. And I think they made it into like 4 2-hour-long movies. If you're really into it, it's cool, but it was kind of a rough watch. Like I had to like take a break, watch a bunch of other stuff, come back.
Sure.
Because they started with Halo 1 and there's like 7 Halo games and they used every game.
Wow.
So it's definitely. But you know,
good
back
for
to like
them, man.
But back to like being impacted, you know, as filmmakers, as musicians, and what have you. Because you're also a drummer, right?
Yeah.
So
I play in a couple bands.
So have you guys figured out a way to do like virtual concerts or something like that?
No, my bands are all really weird and really loud. So like the one band has been working in the studio for like a couple years already, and we weren't playing gigs as it was, so that really didn't affect us. Besides, there's more studio time, and my bandmate runs his studio where we record, so that's that. But the other band is a band called Exist, and I actually play keys and sing in that band. But that's like a really progressive sort of psychedelic metal band, and that band only really tours. And like usually we're not like a huge band, so we're usually lower in the tour packages, opening up for bigger bands.
Mm-hmm.
But of course that's not happening at all. Like clubs like we would be playing aren't hosting anybody, and we kind of feel like in 2021, whenever that thing starts happening, we're still so far down the totem pole as far as that world that who knows if we're even going to get offered anything in 2021. So it's like we might not even be playing shows till 2022, like
right.
Realistically. So it's just we don't know. Nobody knows. Like I don't know how to do my bands virtually. Because of like the amplifiers and just what's going on. But
yeah,
like a lot of my friends, like my co-host on Camp Nightmare is also a musician, but he's more in like the alt country acoustic stuff. So he's like has no problem. He's just jumped right in, started doing live streams. You know, people could leave tips digitally, doing them from his living room. Now he's doing social distance shows at breweries and still live streaming. So it's, you know, it could be a very real shift in like how concerts go. Like even if, of course, things will move back to the live environment, but like I think the presence of live streaming these concerts is like not going to go down. I think it's just going to stay up, you know.
And that's another thing. I've been talking to a lot of colleagues about this, and Dead Mouse, I think it was Dead Mouse, and you know, before he passed away, Avicii, they've been live streaming their EDM shows on Twitch for years. I mean, ever since Twitch launched, I think in 2012, 2013, I think it was a couple of years after its launch, DJs were like, bro, I'm going to plug in my main out to my, you know, built-in input in my laptop, and just click stream on Twitch, and everything else is, you know, through the whole deck, you know, the interface or the mixer or whatever the hell DJs are using. And it's that simple. Just plug in, just take an extra XLR to 1/8, plug it into your built-in input, and stream Zoom or stream Twitch or YouTube Live. And DJs, there's half the big names out there have been doing this for years, and now this is the only way to do it. And I'm sure you're aware. I think we talked about this before, where one of my main gigs is live streaming, you know, corporate and industrial events, corporate conventions and things of that nature. And so now we've had to do it virtually, a lot of Zoom conferences, a lot of Zoom seminars and things of that nature. And I'm sure the producers, I'm sure the big heads that fund or finance these big seminars are looking at attendance is the same, budget is way low. Before we were at the Marriott Marquis in DC, hotel, food, banquet, all the conference halls, all the breakout rooms, attendance was 5,000. And then online attendance was like 50,000. And then they look at this and they say budget is 1/10 of that. Online attendance is still 50,000 online attendees.
Right.
Why would I go back to blowing, $500,000 on a conference, or $1 million maybe even on a conference?
Right. When it's only a fraction of your audience.
A fraction.
Yeah.
Exactly. And
no,
so
it makes total sense.
Yeah. And so I think of course, like you said, a lot, we're going to go back to, the crowds and everybody and the public interaction, and, everybody seeing each other and being involved with each other. But a lot of producers and a lot of big heads are going to realize we're saving way more money on doing it this way.
Yeah. It's like that silent majority thing. Like, like you just said, so many people have been doing the online thing already, and now it's just everyone's moving there. You can't ignore that even when things go back to normal.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely.
I don't know how it's going to shift everything, but
I
mean, a lot of film festivals have even talked about, like, this year, like going digital as an option, having digital screenings, which, I mean, is like a fraction of the fun of a film festival too. Like, so much of that is going to being in a theater, like seeing the movies. Like, there's something different between, like, oh, it's an online premiere versus, like, I'm seeing this in a theater and only the people in this room are, like, seeing this thing for the first time kind of feeling. But
yeah, like, you have to have a code. You have to have the code. You have to have code to go to the film festival's website. You have to have a code to enter. But you as a filmmaker, me as the festival organizer, I'm gonna say, hey, Jordan, upload your film to YouTube as unlisted. Send me the link. I played on YouTube. I just clicked the YouTube link, zoomed that to the virtual thing, and here is OFF, Online Film Festival, whatever the case may be, and that's it. I mean,
but it eliminates a lot of the networking you can do at these film festivals. Like, you can't meet the people at the, you see a film that you love and you want to talk to the filmmaker, and maybe they have similar things that you're striving at. There's be collaboration there, and a lot of those meetings won't happen with these things all existing digitally.
Yeah, that's a good point. But I mean, I think for me, what's most important is the film and it being seen. And
right.
So someone's going to say, wow, that was a great film. And digitally, there could be virtual, platforms of, like, the filmmakers and bios and connections and all the socials and all the links and things of that nature. And
that's true. And for a lot of people, reaching out digitally is easier too. So, who knows, maybe, like, that could actually be an uptick in people actually wanting to say hi if there's that digital barrier,
But there's nothing beats going to those film festivals.
Of course.
Nothing beats actually going there and, enjoying meeting people and shaking hands. But I'm glad you brought that up, because you were saying, in a year, and, the news is painting some bleak pictures on this, man, because you have a lot of COVID deniers. You have a lot of conspiracy theorists out there.
Yeah.
You got a lot of people just saying, like, fuck it, I'm going out. I'm hugging and kissing and shaking hands. And
it's such a weird position to me. I mean, like, you're not hurting anybody by wearing the mask or not shaking my hand, like, so why make an effort to not wear the mask and shake my hand? Like, don't, come on. It's just a weird stake to take. I don't know. It's just a weird hill to die on.
Yeah. But, and not to mention all the civil distress. The civil distress, the civil unrest out there. And a lot of people are upset. A lot of people pissed off at the other state of affairs, and maybe being quarantined and maybe being sheltered is, getting to their heads, but it's getting spread a lot that way too.
Of course. Yeah, of course. And it's looking like, everyone's talking about a second peak coming, a second wave,
and a third.
And I'm sitting here hosting a horror podcast. I'm like, are you going to ruin my Halloween? Is that what's going to happen?
Yeah.
It's looking that way.
It's going to be a Zoom Halloween.
Oh, it's going to suck. I'm still going to be in costume, though. I'll tell you that much.
Oh yeah, absolutely. But see, the thing is, I think it was late March. Me and the wife were talking, and she goes, "It's going to be more than a year." I'm like, "Absolutely. Just double it. Just plan for double, if not 1.5 times." So they're saying there's going to be another one. Well, if they're saying there's going to be a second, I'm counting on a third. Oh, it's that simple. Like, you got to get used to just mask and gloves.
Yeah. And the more people just insist on this, it's not happening thing. It's
reopen,
just gonna keep going.
Reopen. I'm like, yo, you don't want to reopen. I'm telling you, this is a bad idea.
Patient. Just it's good.
Exactly.
It'll go away. Just be patient. Like if you keep doing this like Florida nonsense, it's gonna be like this for a while.
Exactly. And you know, I think they just, you know, I'm not a scientist, you know, I just read what I can read, but usually it takes a year for a vaccine, for the first vaccine, and the first vaccine is only 50 to 75% effective.
Right.
And then you have to like keep working on that vaccine. So that's a year. So fucking January or February of 2021 will be the first vaccine, which may or may not work.
Right, because it's a novel virus, and what novel viruses do is mutate over time. That's why you have to get a new flu vaccine every year. Like, so by the time you develop the first vaccine, who knows how the original strain has mutated already.
And bro, like, I think it was in June, they came out with 7 more symptoms. So clearly it's mutating, clearly because it's going to somebody that it didn't go to yet. And somebody else reacts. If someone else reacts to it differently, and I think this is common sense. If someone else reacts to it differently, then it's mutated. And then once it leaves that person, goes to somebody else. Now that person, you know, it's constantly mutating from every person because somebody's A negative, and somebody else is B positive, and you know, someone else has a different culture or ethnic background, so they have different inherent things than I do. So they give it to me that I'm getting something, but then I give it to somebody else that's different from me. And then they're getting like 17 different things. And that's how viruses and even just simple bacteria, but especially a novel virus, that's how that works. It's just, everybody's different.
It's scary because we just really, you know, you don't know what it's going to look like a month from now, let alone 6 months from now, you know, it's impossible as hell.
Right. Exactly. So, I mean, there's only so much you can do with a first or second vaccine.
Right.
But so say the vaccine's, you know, perfected by 2022. Still, people have to go out and get a vaccine.
Right.
So that's 2 years at least.
And hopefully testing is more like readily available by that time. You know, my favorite nonsense argument that I keep hearing is that we need to stop testing people because the more people we test, the higher the numbers are going to look. Like I've heard this, Ron Paul of all people, and I've read his book. I like Ron Paul. I've liked Ron Paul for years, but he's talking nonsense, dude.
But that's the stupidest ideology on the planet. That's
how all testing of things that exist work.
Yes.
You test more of it and it appears more because it's real. Like
if there's 100
against that,
if there's 100 people in a building and you only test 10 of them and 5 of them come up positive, then you like, oh, there's only 5 people that have coronavirus. That's not fucking true.
Yeah, and the same logic would say, man, if we hadn't tested those 10 people, there would be no coronavirus.
That's the same
logic.
It's the stupidest fucking logic. It's so stupid. And who said that?
Well, Trump has said that. Ron Paul has said that. Like, it's insane arguments. Like, I don't understand. Like, Ron Paul, of all people, I understand it coming from Trump because I'm used to nonsense there. But, like, Ron Paul's like an intelligent person. And, like, and he's a doctor of all people. So I don't even know.
That's fucking baffling to me. Because I think I heard that and it didn't make sense to me. And I kind of like, I didn't know where that came from or you know, I kind of have to be careful a little bit about what I say professionally when it comes to government and military. But there's a lot of things that I hear certain people say that kind of just in one ear out the other.
Right.
But hearing that coming from, but hearing you fully explain that fucking logic to me is baffling. Like, stop testing people because more people are going to have. I can't even finish the sentence because it doesn't fucking make sense to me.
It's one of those things you hear it and you have to like completely stop and like think through the whole thing. Like, there's a lot to unpack in that sentence.
You know? Do what now?
Yeah. Huh?
Wait. Say it again and say every word slow. I gotta hear this shit.
He said, the more people you test, the higher the numbers are going to be. So we need to slow down the testing of people. That's the logic. So the numbers aren't as high. I guess it's literally a sweep it under the carpet argument.
No shit. Yeah.
It's the same as there was a Mitch Hedberg joke where, you know, Mitch Hedberg at all?
Yeah.
So there's a Mitch Hedberg joke where he says, I'm too afraid to go get an STD test. So I call my buddy and I say, hey, do you know anyone with AIDS? And he says, no. And I say, good. That's
exactly
the exact logic.
That's the exact fucking logic. That is the exact fucking logic. Yeah. All right. I'm getting flustered. So, hey, listen, I think the point of that point is that we're finding like production hacks. And I'm talking about production hacks. I've talked about it in every episode of this podcast. Production hacks. So you can't right now make a horror movie, but at least you can like dabble in some ideas on your podcast, or you can talk about some of the
It's the only thing like a creative person can do. If you're a musician, great time to write. It's a great time to record at home. You know, if you're a filmmaker, it's a great time to either continue writing your scripts or just figure out, if you're a cinematographer, like storyboard, or, you know, figure out just how, once you finally get on the street and get camera in your hand and able to shoot, you'll be so much more prepared. And hopefully, you know, we'll be able to make great stuff.
Yeah. When we first met on Till Curtain Call, I had just come back from a 9-month deployment in Kuwait with the National Guard. And so we had so much downtime. I prepped 3 shorts, 3 features, script doctored. I started taking red pen to like these scripts and like reworking them.
Yeah.
I started coming up with shot lists, schedules, budgets, scene breakdowns, like prepping them all ready to shoot. And then I started putting together some crowdfunding, packages and pages, and not just yet, once I get home, get settled in, then I was going to kick off those Indiegogos. And then I didn't meet my budget with one, but I met my budget with another one, which was Fear This, that super short.
Right.
Which leads me to, so you had to go to that film festival for that film.
Was that Nightmares?
Well, was that 2017 or 20? It was 2018.
It's probably 2018. Do you know what month did you shoot? Was that October?
It was April.
It's April.
April.
Oh, this was probably Beverly Hills Film Fest. Yeah. Okay.
That might have been. It was.
Yeah. That was a film that I produced and I edited and I did the music for. And that was a film called 17 Locust Street.
Yep.
Which was like a dark thriller. Not quite a horror. It was like a thriller. We got into the Beverly Hills Film Festival, which is a pretty prestigious film fest. You know, it's probably the fanciest film fest I've been to. We went out to LA and they had the whole final award ceremony was in the room where the first 3 or 4 Oscars were held. So it was pretty epic. Our film premiered at the Chinese theater, so it was fantastic. It was awesome.
That's awesome.
No awards or anything, but like a hell of an experience,
Oh, well, yeah. I mean, you have some people that are just like, oh, you didn't win. I'm like, bro, I got nominated.
Yeah. Who cares?
Compared to what you like. No, man, that's awesome, dude. That's fantastic. Yeah, like we were saying, it's just for right now, it's just use this time wisely, and like prep, write, or maybe find a workaround. And so it's been 5 years since I came back from Kuwait, and now it's like, dude, I'm pulling the trigger on some of this stuff. I'm gonna make some motion comics, or I'm gonna do like I was even thinking of doing, like, you remember the old Batman or the old Phantom.
The radio
serials.
Yeah.
And I was gonna try and like play on something like that with even less animated stills, but still use like some graphics of some kind.
Yeah.
But kind of like do it in like one of those old radio serials.
I've been playing with that same thing. That's what I've been taking. Okay. Some of the stories I've been writing, I've been adapting into like radio dramas for the podcast. Yeah. So like I can dramatically read them here. Before the COVID happened, I would have my co-host would do certain lines for certain characters, and I'd have my girlfriend do certain lines for female characters or whatever. Now it's just really me just narrating myself, but I'll compose dramatic music to it, and I'll put sound effects in and stuff. So more or less it becomes like a radio drama type thing, because I thought that would be a really interesting, like it's an underused medium, as far as how many people are into podcasts and how many people are into listening as a medium, audiobooks are bigger than ever.
Especially now, because no one's going to the theater.
Right.
And everybody is streaming. And going back to what we said earlier, everybody's going to be doing it this way for a while. And it's the quarantine, the COVID is going to be a problem for a good solid 2 years. Starting,
you got to lean into it at this point. You got
so
to
it's going to be sometime in 2022 when it's really like somewhat safe to go outside and mingle. So like you said, it's going to be podcasts, it's going to be, you know, web series, it's going to be streaming this online. That,
like, I'm so thankful to have the podcast, because I'm one of those people, if I don't have a project that I'm actively working towards completing, I go a little crazy. I start feeling a lot of anxiety, and I start feeling like, what am I doing, you know, with my life? So like it's been honestly keeping me entirely sane, having like weekly goals of like, great podcasts, you know, we get doing this every week is a different thing. It's awesome. It's awesome. So like, I mean, writing and all that stuff is also great, but not having the promise of when you can actually shoot any of that stuff, you know, is a little terrifying. I'm just thankful, you know, that I'm on the indie side of things, you know, like not being in LA and not being in Hollywood. Like I've talked to, you know, Hollywood director on the podcast recently, and it was, you know, not good stuff. He was saying, you know, he's not looking forward to going back to work because it's already like ridiculous. Like this director directs indie stuff, but he works in Hollywood on sets, but just on crew. And, you know, it's already so hard, like what they do, the hours, you know, all that stuff. But put on top of that, like all the stipulations you'll have to now adhere to run a safe set, like daily testings, like all of these other things, like minimal crew. It's going to be longer hours. It's going to be harder to produce things. At least as indie guys, we can go out with sound, camera, talent and call it a day, more or less, you know, and get what we need to get. So at least we have that.
So there was another film where I was co-producing, and half our crew dropped out for whatever reason. We lost our sound guy, we lost a camera guy, and we lost an AD. So I was a producer. I was a producer cinematographer. The director was like the sound guy, and we decided to take a hard wire into. We had 2 different Zoom recorders. So basically, the whole day we killed batteries every day. We put the Zoom in the different actors and we labbed them up, and we just let it roll. We didn't break up the clips. We just moved camera, and they have this lab running. I'm like, look, this thing's going to run all day. And I had someone say like, that's going to be a nightmare syncing that. That's going to be a nightmare finding. And I'm like, we have no sound guy. We have no camera guy. I'm producing and doing camera. The director is also doing sound. So he was just like, boop, just leave it. And let me know if
there's a movie that did that. That's crazy. So I was watching this thing about, there's a movie called Escape from Tomorrow. It's a bizarre movie. It's kind of a horror film, kind of like a experimental film, but what they did is they shot the entire thing in Disneyland without Disneyland knowing it. So like awesome. They have actors. It's a story about a father who takes his family to Disneyland and slowly dissolves into this like hallucinatory nightmare of like Disney characters questioning his sexuality and all this weird stuff. But like they shot it all on what, you know, it looked just a DSLR. So it looked like a dude with a camera, and everybody was exactly how you said, laved up, recording all day.
All day.
No stops, no cuts. There is no slate. There is no AD. There's no nothing. It's just we go out there. It's kind of like the Halo thing, you know. Our environment instead of Halo is Disney World. We're just gonna sneak in there, get what we need, and assemble it later. And then shoot what we need on sets later. Sounds like a nightmare, but you know, you gotta do what you gotta do.
Exactly. And it's just
you were saying how they were saying you can go all day and you're gonna have to sync and find all that stuff, which is,
you got to go back. You have to go back and you got to sync it, and you got to find. But the thing is, you knocked out a feature film in what, a day or two for $500 to $1,000. So you make up for it in post.
Right.
You make up for it in post and say, hey, look, if you're not even getting paid for post, you just spend 5 hours a day every other day unfucking that audio and labeling the audio, and then you go back and then you can find the clips it was in or whatever. You figure it out. But holy shit, yeah. I mean, it's a way to make it work. It's a hack. You have to like, embrace the suck on the back end. But it was like, boom, 2 days we got ourselves a feature film in 2 days. So
exactly.
You give some, you get some. If you had $12 million, it would have been way easier. But then where the fuck do you get the $12 million?
Exactly. You got to do the best you can, with what you have, especially now. I mean, that's the name of the game for everything creatively now, is just doing the best you can with like what you can get.
Exactly. Yeah. So with that, I guess we beat that horse too much. So so moving on.
Yeah.
Since you've been quarantined and since you've been sheltering in place and all that stuff, has there been a film that stands out, or a series you binged watched, or maybe a book that has that really stands out, helps you get through it, or just help pass the time or whatever?
Well, there's been a lot of that. There's a few that stick out in my head. One of them is just like I've sort of let David Lynch become my spirit guide for this whole quarantine.
Holy shit, that sucks.
No,
bro.
So I rewatched all of Twin Peaks from the beginning again, 1, 2, 3, those 3 seasons. Mm-hmm. Then I did his whole master class, and then I started rewatching his old movies, Mulholland Drive, Velvet, and then I've just been Eraserhead, just been vibing on all of those. So he's been really sparking a lot of creativity for me. So he's been my spirit guide more or less. No
shit.
But
no, go ahead.
What were you gonna ask?
Did you know he directed Straight Story? Did you watch Straight Story?
I've never seen that one actually. I knew he did that, but I haven't seen it.
So it's his one I think it's his one PG. It's a Disney flick. It's PG. It's a great, phenomenal, inspiring, true story.
Awesome,
dude. It's definitely worth a watch. And it's just his it's his complete. It's like Kevin Smith when he did Tusk, or no, right. I don't know which one came out first, Tusk or Red State. But Kevin Smith did a bunch of hilarious comedies. They're all. If they weren't View Askew universe, if they weren't Jay and Silent Bob movies, then he did, Jersey.
The True North ones, right? The Tusk, Red State, and the Yoga Hosers, right? Was another one.
I never did see Yoga Hosers, but I saw Red State and Tusk. But when he first did Red State, I'm like, holy shit! Like Kevin Smith does like some insane horror stuff.
Yeah,
and but it's the complete opposite with David Lynch. The Straight Story is like, dude, this is a great kids film, like a family film from the guy who brought us Dennis Hopper sucking on nitro, or I haven't even finished Inland Empire. I don't know how or when I'm even going to try that. But yeah, Lynch, man. Wow. That's not what I would have picked. I've been on, I've been binge watching all 80s. I'll make my point quick. I've been binge watching all 80s action, like the B movies from the 80s.
Nice.
Plus the classics, like all the 80s stuff in my last 3 months, because it's just stuff that I wanted to like rewatch and see how it inspires me, and because you can take a lot of like indie stuff, like how they pulled off some stuff back in the 80s is really cool.
Oh hell yeah, especially the effects, man. Like pre-digital age, that's the golden era, man.
Like The Thing is one of the best horror movies.
Thank you. Ever made.
And it's all practical, man.
100%. Rob Bottin did the special effects in that. With Stan Winston came in on some of them, but like that is one of the best effects films ever made. That, or like maybe Cronenberg's The Fly or something, which again is all practical.
Yeah, but back to Lynch.
Yeah, I mean, well, that's pretty much it with Lynch. I've just been watching a ton of his stuff, like everything I could possibly get. I've like been kind of all over the place. I'm always reading Stephen King, and one weird thing was I started reading The Stand, which is of course about a killer flu that basically is doing exactly what COVID is doing, but on a much harsher level. I started reading The Stand, and it's like 900 pages when you get the extended version. I started it like at least a month before like all of this stuff even was happening at all. So when I started The Stand, it was just a normal ass world, But when I finished The Stand, we were in the middle of a Stand-esque quarantine, and it was very bizarre. So that was a weird one.
No shit. So
yeah. But I stuck through it. I got to get through this. I have to get through this.
Yeah. So let's say King knew this was going to happen. Who do you think Flag is in the real world right now?
I mean, seems like Trump. Who else would he be?
Well, you said it, not me.
Who else would he be? Except for like Flag is really like attractive, and he wears cool denim jackets and stuff, and he's got cool hair maybe, but like.
But see, we
got Alexander Skarsgård playing Flag in the next adaptation.
Alexander from True Blood.
I think he was in True Blood. He was in what's that series with? I'm terrible with names, but he's the more jacked Skarsgård brother, the really attractive one who always plays sort of asshole attractive guys in movies. Okay. So now he's going to play like the king of asshole attractive dudes in Stand.
Well, did you see The Dark Tower with Idris Elba and Matthew McConaughey?
Yeah.
And did you ever read The Dark Towers?
Oh yes, I'm a huge fan of the whole Dark Tower series.
So I'm halfway through the very last book, but I saw that movie and I was just so disappointed and upset.
Yeah.
And how did they, where did they come up with anything in that movie? They didn't.
It's like they drop in like halfway through the 5th book. It's like the first 3 books like don't even happen. Half the characters aren't even there.
Their interpretation of the Doors was completely fucked.
Completely different.
Fucked.
Yeah, it was way less interesting than they visualize it in the books. I will tell you, once you finish the last book, the ending of the Dark Tower, which I think is one of the most brilliant endings, shows you how, like, much like J.J. Abrams' Star Trek reboot, that this Dark Tower movie can exist alongside the books without interfering with them.
Yeah.
So there's at least that. But like,
so right, because you are right. Matthew McConaughey, the Matthew McConaughey movie can exist.
Yeah, it's another turn of the wheel of Ka. You know, it's another go. That's a little bit different.
I know what you mean. Yeah.
There's that, but it's like it's not as good. And the thing is, I always say that it's not an outright terrible movie. And if you don't know the Dark Tower books and you watch the movie and you're interested by the ideas they bring up, but never resolve, just read the books.
Yeah,
because they really don't give away the ending to the Dark Tower series at all in the movie.
No.
They bring up a lot of the things that happen, but they don't resolve any of them.
First off, it started in the middle and it ended in the middle.
Exactly, it didn't end.
Yeah, and it started in the middle and ended in the middle of something else that they misconstrued anyway.
Yeah, you know, so, it's Idris Elba did a great job, and I actually
phenomenal.
Love him as the gunslinger. I see that. I wasn't
so
crazy about McConaughey. I think he kind of overdid it a little bit.
No, I thought both of them were pretty awesome in the movie.
Yeah,
but
the movie missed the mark.
When he got a checkup in the hospital, that was like the best part of the movie. When he got a checkup in the hospital,
that was pretty good.
They said
kind of had the vibes of the book a little bit there.
You have herpes. You have Hep 1. You have Hep A, Hep B, Hep C. You have herpes. You have herpes 1, 2, 3. You have astronomical amounts of radioactive and nuclear exposure. And he's looking at him like, what are you talking about? And they're like, your chart is
aspirin. Yeah,
your chart is through the roof. You have shit we don't even have a name for. and it's like, yeah, if you're a fan of the book and you actually read it and you like, and you know the whole mythos of the gunslinger, it's like that was like the best. That was the best scene in the whole movie, because it just took me back to so much shit that I remember from the books.
Right, you're like, of course he has all this stuff. Like,
of course
he does. And have you heard about, I guess, the pilot they did for was it Amazon? They were doing a Dark Tower series. They produced a whole pilot episode, and Amazon just straight up canceled on it.
Before or after the movie?
After the movie.
No,
they said that because Amazon, I guess they're also developing like a Lord of the Rings series and stuff, and they felt like the Dark Tower pilot they saw didn't live up to like the fantasy levels of like these other things that are being produced, like, which of course Dark Tower isn't quite like that, but it goes further than all of them in a lot of ways.
It goes way further, but Dark Tower's never been. Dark Tower is basically the good and the bad and the ugly, Fistful of Dollars, etc. That style taking place in Mad Max,
right? With demons,
with demons and monsters and creatures.
Yeah, exactly.
But way further past in the future of Mad Max.
And this pilot they produced, the stills look amazing. And they're starting basically in Wizard and Glass. So they're actually starting chronologically first. And you see the events of Wizard and Glass mixed with the Gunslinger. So you see the stuff with Susan Delgado and Magus.
Yeah, chronologically.
Yeah, and the big coffin hunters and that stuff. But they blend it. They're somehow blending it with the first book too. So like the Man in Black is present, and it's sort of, so it begins with him also, but then starts when Roland is younger.
Yeah. Well, that's definitely worth looking into.
I don't know what it's worth because we'll probably never see it because Amazon canceled on it. Yeah. What I want to see happen is Hulu picks it up and then they blend it with Castle Rock, and they just create a Stephen King universe.
Dude, Castle Rock's amazing,
right? And plus, Castle Rock has presented a thinny. The sound in the woods, that's got to be a thinny in my mind. So you've already got a connection to the Dark Tower there.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't want to give any Castle Rock too many spoilers away because it gets pretty crazy.
Yeah, it does get crazy, but obviously, yeah, okay, we don't want to do spoilers, but like the way they,
we probably isolated like most of the people listening to this by talking about Dark Tower so much anyway. So
yeah, they probably clicked off. But doing a sequel to Shawshank and then a prequel to Misery, like that's dope.
So good, good.
Yeah, and any other films? Any other maybe a book?
I'll tell you. Well, I've been reading like a lot of Palahniuk, a lot of Lovecraft Country. I'm almost done with that. And that's coming out as like an HBO series from Jordan Peele and J.J. Abrams, like the end of the year or something. So I'm reading through that right now. It's really good, especially if you're a fan of Lovecraft and some of the stuff that he's established.
My previous guest just brought up Color Out of Space. Have you seen it?
Yeah.
Okay, I haven't.
It's a great Lovecraft story. It's a short Lovecraft story, and then the Nick Cage version is nuts. It's Richard Stanley came back to do that out of retirement.
Okay. Yeah, because it's on my queue to watch. Like that's like the next or second next thing. Because also
it's wild.
My previous guest, we talked about The Five Bloods on Netflix, and then Color Out of Space. I think I got to get it on Hulu or Prime somehow. But like those are like the two next films I'm gonna watch if it's not another date night with the wife.
Yeah, totally. It's wild, man. I mean, Richard Stanley quit directing because he was the original director on that doomed Island of Dr. Moreau.
I heard film. So yeah, my buddy told me the whole story about this director, and he quit, and Frankenheimer took up that the Brando Moreau movie.
And it's kind of cool because Richard Stanley went out on like a failed H.G. Wells story, and now he's coming back on a Lovecraft story. I think there's something cool about that.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'll tell you also a random one that's totally unlike anything else. I've watched the Harry Potter movies for the first time in my entire life. I've like known nothing about the Harry Potter universe. As a 32-year-old man, I gotta say it's delightful.
You liked them?
I liked them. I thought it's a really well-rounded story. I'm so glad that I guess they stayed true to the books because it felt very consistent the whole way through. Like I love that they bring back things from the early films aren't just there for the early films. Like they have payoff way later on. Like the character development is great. Like I love Snape as a character, especially once you really get the full picture of it.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Like I think it's a really well done story.
Yeah. So fun. It's funny you mentioned that because going back when I was deployed, I think I binge watched all 8 movies. And I think a week later, someone asked me about it. I said, yeah, I just binge watched them. And I don't remember a goddamn thing. I don't think that's something you can binge watch. I think the way the kids did it, as they come out in the theater once a year, you watch it and you absorb it as one film. And I watched it like, maybe you would a Netflix series, you would binge watch it.
Yeah. And exactly the way that I watched it this time. I binge watch it too. And the same thing, I would talk about it with someone after and then be like, and remember this? And be like, no. Because a million things happen.
I remember Snape turned out to be like the greatest person on the planet.
Exactly. He's so deep undercover.
Dude.
Nobody knows who he's working for, but he's like the best of them all.
What other character? It was I don't know if you watched Lost, but there was a character on Lost like the whole time. Somebody put himself through such hell and such misery for so long, and then you find out he was doing it for the right reasons. Like he was the mole. It was like the long con. He was like the mole of all moles.
I did love Lost. I'm trying to remember who that was. Yeah.
Oh, I hate Lost. Lost was
Lost is like the opposite of how you just described watching the Harry Potter series, where the Harry Potter series is better when you have like a year to watch the movie 3 times before the next one. Lost, if you don't watch the next episode like 30 minutes after the first one you just watched, then you're not going to retain like anything.
And you're going to lose your mind. But I
don't know how people watched it when it came out on TV, waiting a week between every episode. I couldn't retain anything there.
I remember the discussions back when I was working at Discovery. Again, back when I was working at Discovery, having discussions from, Monday to Thursday. And then finally it comes out Thursday night. And then you like told you so or whatever, Friday at work. But what a waste of my life that show was. Complete waste. The whole last season. What a waste of my life.
I like Lost, but I totally understand why people wouldn't like Lost.
Oh, did I get muted?
I got you here.
Oh, okay. All right. So, some kind of blip came up on my screen, but no, we're good. I don't know. Hey, I mean, dude, I loved Lost until it started, like the last couple seasons.
They probably should have trimmed off like 2 seasons somewhere in there. You know, like it would have been a stronger story.
Well,
if,
it
like,
was
some of that stuff didn't happen.
It was told clearly. Somebody came out that had quit the show halfway. They were like, "This was supposed to be done already." And then it's such a success. The network wanted to keep it going, and I get that, and I understand that.
Yeah,
but it ruined it.
Yeah, J.J. Abrams went off and made some other movies. He came back and he's like, "Oh, this show's still going on? I didn't intend for that."
Still on? No, he wanted it done at season 3. He wanted it done. Yeah. So, I guess moving on. What would you say is your next agenda or next set of goals for, a couple of months from now, maybe the next 6 months?
I guess those shoots I sort of talked about with the anthology film. So that film's gonna be called The Black Hills Night Hike. It's all about urban legends. So every vignette of the anthology film tells a different urban legend, all based around Maryland. So we were supposed to shoot in May for our top layer narrative, which would more or less complete the film. But we've picked dates for October. We're gonna try really hard to shoot that thing in October. We don't know if we are or not. It's just. But like I said earlier, it's like if you don't like set dates and set a goal for yourself, knowing that we might have to change that goal when we get there. But if you don't set that thing in the first place, then no progress is ever going to get made. So we're at least scheduling shoots we hope will happen. If we can do that, then by 2021, we'll have a finished film, hopefully, to get back into the festival season if things are looking okay by then. We don't want to spend all this time on a film, and then if shit's still so rough that our festivals aren't going to happen, we don't want to, submit our film to that. So hopefully 2021, if things are okay, if festivals are happening, who knows, then we'll have that film hopefully then. And if things are back to normal by 2021, I have another short that I'm hopefully going to be shooting, and I'm getting producers lined up for that now and starting to sort of get funds together and pre-produce. And that will be sort of a proof of concept for another feature idea. So I would love to take this short to festivals in 2022 and, try to hit the big ones and try to get more producers behind a feature version of that. And I have all this time to write that script too, which is great. So I know what the short is. I have all this time to hopefully finish an entire feature version of that story before I even shoot the short, so all of that stuff is just sitting there already done. I can really hit these festivals with guns loaded.
Yeah. Awesome, man.
Not literally guns loaded. You can't say that anymore in 2020.
No.
Nerf guns loaded.
Inputs charged.
Jacked. I don't know.
Fueled up. Engines fueled up. Engines fueled up.
Let's see someone get offended at that. Yeah, fueled up.
Oh, you can't make my car's not violent. Well, no, good point. You got to watch what you say. So
I have plans, but who knows if I got plans. I know I might break.
Right. Yeah. Well, like we said, the next year, maybe even 2 years, is still a bit uncertain, and so, me and a couple of colleagues, they're like, we gotta do this and then the other thing, and I'm like, listen, we need to perfect the whole virtual thing, the whole teleworking thing, the whole virtual thing, this kind of podcast, this kind of conference, this kind of event, this kind of concert, the online gaming streaming, man. You got some characters on there that are hysterical. You got pranksters that go into games and just troll on their buddy, and it's hilarious. There's a whole series on TikTok right now. It's called Crash Cab. And so in a video game,
is it like Cash Cab, but they cause the driver to wreck?
So it's called Crash Cab, right? So you got games like, Call of Duty, they're all, or Black Ops or Battlefield. So
I'm letting my dog outside real quick. She's begging to get let out. 1 second.
Okay.
Sorry about that. She's out.
No, it's all good, man. It's all good. So games like Battlefield, Call of Duty, whatever, Black Ops. So someone will be driving a helicopter and come in. We're going to go to the next mission. So all these people jump in the helicopter. He says, okay, welcome welcome to Crash Cab. As he's lifting off, they can't jump out now. They're going to die. He said, so I have a question for you. Hopefully you can answer correctly or we're going to crash and die. And so he'll ask a question like, who invented the freaking blah, blah, and no one can get it. He goes, sorry guys, you answered incorrectly and we're out of time. And he crashes into something. They all die. And you hear these guys screaming, why are we doing this? I want to play the game. There's a whole series.
Brilliant.
And so what's funny is somebody answered it right. And he goes, how the hell did you know that? And he goes, and the person answered was going into this whole thing. He was like, you know what? I don't care. This is called Crash Cab or crashing anyway. The guy got it right. He crashes anyway into something. They all die. And like the mission's over. It's one of those games where like, if you die, there's no respawn or something.
Oh,
or you end up all the way at the other end of the map in the game. So
see, being the Crash Cab host already sounds more fun than the game itself.
There's the gig. I mean, that's the gig. That's the shows that we're watching now. That's the TikToks and the IG lives or the Twitches and the YouTube streams and things of that nature. So
yeah, I mean, they've already like a film is already announced. We have like our first AI actual robot going to be a lead in a movie. Like
I can't wait to see that.
Right,
that's not going to be a normal thing I want to watch. But I want to see what that might be like AI putting a film together.
Like if it could work in a sci-fi film, like the film Ex Machina. If you had an actual android playing the android in Ex Machina, that's a pretty complex idea. If a robot can act, I guess that's the first question we need to answer. Is this robot going to be enjoyable to watch the whole time?
It's funny you mentioned that because they just had an interview with that robot, that female robot. They were asking questions and she was coming up with like some funny comebacks, and I wish I knew what the name of the robot was. I would pull it up, but
you know what, I'm into it. I love the Short Circuit movies. I'm in. If I can watch Johnny Five for 2 hours, I can watch this robot, I guarantee you.
Right. Yeah. And that's another one on my list I need to watch is Ex Machina, because I never got a chance to check that out. And I love I love little bizarre indie films like that. Here's one. Have you ever seen a movie called Primer?
Oh yeah, I remember that movie.
I remember this. It's like little sci-fi, little.
It was on Netflix for a while.
It was ultra low budge, where they come up with the simplest of ideas to surrounded by like a big idea. Yeah, time travel. Yeah. And that's definitely like top 10 ultra indies. Blair Witch, Primer, Swingers. Right. I talk about Swingers all the time. Like four dudes just going out in the town, and all their ups and downs. And it was a fantastic movie.
And I love when sci-fi does, like you said about like bringing up Primer. I mean, I think that's the most effective way to do sci-fi. Is like people are more interested in human stories than they are like complex theories of time travel. Like time travel is a much better background than it is a leading role. Like I think like that's why Spielberg was so effective. He took giant ideas but made them stories about individual people or like family units. That's just better storytelling, I think.
Yeah, I mean, Back to the Future was a much bigger budgeted trilogy, but you're right. I mean, the high school dance was like the center of the whole universe. The whole central plot point was the high school dance, not like a vehicle, not really the vehicle. I mean, the vehicle was kind of an icon, but not really like, oh, we have to gather all this plutonium, and then we have to like, we have to go to this other planet and gather like uranium. And it's like, no, man, we got to go to the high school dance and make sure my parents kiss.
Exactly. Yeah. Because
that
otherwise it's like, you're not, it's less interesting. It's less emotionally grabbing to like talk about, it's easier to just be like, it works on trash now. We just throw trash in the car and we fly away. How's that?
Like they were kind of getting rid of like the whole vehicle. Like they weren't really paying attention to the vehicle.
Yeah, exactly. It's like it's a DeLorean. That's the reason it was so cool, is because it was like a DeLorean already. Right. And you're like, well, it's because of the flux capacitor. What's the flux capacitor? I don't know. It's what it is, and it's what you need. 1.21
gigawatts.
That's right.
What's more important is your parents kissing.
That's right.
That's the whole thing. Oh, my mom's in love with me now. And it's like this awkward, creepy kind of humor, and
the weird incestual subtext of Back to the Future.
Yeah, and he's like, my mom's into me, and Doc is just like kind of like spying on the conversation, and he's just like, great Scott, your mom's
Dear
into
Lord,
you.
Marty, this is dark stuff.
was it George? We gotta get George. We gotta make George a hero. And then like it gets.
And of course, we got Crispin Glover, who is amazing. I love Crispin Glover, dude.
And you know,
George McFly, fantastic.
Yeah. And Marty can't help but be the hero over George, and it's just what Marty.
But George eventually punches Biff.
Right.
Biff, who's one of the greatest douchebags in movie history.
Finally, yeah. But so
what I never got is in Back to the Future, he comes right and he puts the he puts Van Halen on the headphones of George McFly, and he plays Van Halen. He says he's Darth Vader. He drops some Star Trek knowledge, and then George McFly grows up and lives through the era of Star Wars and Van Halen and all these other things. And not at one point was he just like,
wasn't that song?
Yeah, well, I know this song. I know who Darth, like all this stuff literally shaped my entire life.
I think he ended up being a sci-fi writer.
He did.
I think what happens is he wrote Star Wars.
Whoa.
Well, I think
that would be brilliant.
They kind of lean towards that. Like he co-wrote it with Lucas or whatever.
Oh, damn. That would be that's the deep subtext of
the very simple clue they gave was that he released a new book.
Right.
So he's a sci-fi writer. So at some point, maybe he wrote a novel of Star Wars that then got adapted into a movie.
And then he becomes the guitarist of Van Halen. He replaces Eddie.
Well, maybe he just doesn't recognize the song. Maybe he doesn't recognize the song because it was just the big riff that was squelching in his ear.
That's true. Yeah, that was more just.
It's like, I know that music. Well, how do I know that music? I don't know. But anyway, yeah. No, that's definitely something I need to go back and watch. It's those 80s movies that you can watch 80 times.
Yeah, I love 80s flicks.
And not get bored. And they knew how to tell a story, and secretly they had a lot of underlying context, which you pick up later as a 20-year-old, and then later as a 30-year-old, and then later as a father. Like there's probably jokes in Back to the Future I didn't get, but now that I got a kid, I might get them.
Yeah, absolutely, man. I 80s has always been like 80s and early 90s stuff has been fantastic. One of my favorite shows that have popped back up in the past couple of years is Last Drive-In with Joe Bob Briggs. And I don't know if you know who Joe Bob Briggs is, but he's been doing the same thing for like 40 years, hosting drive-in movies. Like, and so they brought his show back on Shudder. So every Friday night, he's just finished his second season, and they just did the season premiere a couple weeks ago. Every Friday night, they do a double feature of horror films from different eras. A lot of times they're from the 80s, and or 70s. And he'll go on a rant, and then he'll keep cutting into the movie every now and again to give you more facts about the filmmakers and the actors and all this good stuff. And he has guests, and it's felt like those days, like back when I was a kid, I'd stay up late to watch movies, and back to this era of live television and movie hosts.
Yeah. And me personally, I remember watching Joe Bob Briggs, and
Monster Vision.
Monster Vision with Joe Bob Briggs. I think it was on TBS,
TNT or TBS. I forget. Yeah,
it was one of them. But this was before Google. He had such a plethora of knowledge. And
does. It's crazy.
And I'm sure he still does. But now with the internet, he probably knows, because he's the kind of guy that wants to know that shit. And so he probably just Googles everything. And I find I do that a lot too.
Right.
I'll look up, I'll see something that was weird in a movie. And so I'll just start looking at it and oh, they had restrictions. And they got thrown out of this bar. So one shot looks like it's in a completely different place, but the rest of the scene was in this bar, and little things like that. But I think now it's I can't be listening to Joe Bob. I just want to watch the movie without Joe Bob.
Oh, Joe Bob's why I watch half of these movies. He's better than ever.
Yeah. Well, kind of going off on all of our points. What would you say your vision for the new normal is?
Geez, man, I have no idea what a new normal is. I think we're about done with the handshake, though. I think as a society, we've probably moved on to bows, pound it. Yeah. I think we're about done with the handshake, maybe for a while.
For a while, not forever.
For a while. It'll come back. It'll probably come back. But maybe by the time it comes back, we'll have a new generation, and they'll be like, "It's lame. That's lame. What are you doing?"
Yeah.
But who knows? Murder hornets could set in any minute. We're gonna have filmmakers have announced trying to do use CGI so they can still film sex scenes with social distancing. So who knows what a new normal is going to look like?
Yeah,
CGI sex scene filled future, you know,
be
with robotic actors, even maybe.
Yeah, catering is going to be different. Medical department's going to be bigger on sets.
It's gonna be crazy. Yeah, exactly. Like, it's just gonna be tougher. Like, everything's gonna be tougher. Like, I've been like, for right now, like I've been trying to shoot this music video with a band for a record label, but like we already can't schedule people. Like, we can't get in anywhere to shoot it. You know, I'm shooting everybody individually at different times. The drummer's in Georgia, so somebody else is shooting his segments down there and sending it up to me. And the record label wants a photograph of the band, but they don't want like a composite of like images put into one. And I'm like, I cannot get all these people in one room to shoot this photograph.
Right.
So I'm like, I'm going to have to like composite something together, but it's making everything more difficult. There's just always more crap to figure out now.
Yeah.
You know?
Is it a metal band?
It is. Yeah. It's actually, it's Exist. It's the band I play with on tour and stuff.
Okay. Yeah. So here's a suggestion. Try to put together like some sort of poster, kind of like usual suspects.
Mm-hmm.
You can composite each one of them.
That's sort of what I'm doing. Yeah. Because I'm
a police lineup.
Right. Yeah. What I've been doing is shooting everything against black backgrounds. And I don't have budget or the ability to shoot like a narrative part of this music video. So it's literally just the band playing, but I'm just like going hard on dramatic lighting and crazy colored lighting and stuff, and doing the same with the photographs, and then going to blend it together. Plus the band likes trippy, psychedelic-y looking stuff. So it's always easy for me to convince them it's a good idea. And I'm like, it'll look trippy in a good way. And
cool.
They're like,
yeah, man.
Cool.
Trippy is good, man. And and I'm telling you, like, again, with today's new normal and what people are willing to accept now. I mean, I'm seeing commercials. I'm seeing PSAs. I'm seeing adverts on Hulu and Tubi, and what's that other one? And Vudu. Right. And all the commercials now, they're shot. John Krasinski, Oprah Winfrey, Will Smith. They're all doing selfie stuff on their phones and Dropboxing it. So it's for the next year or two, because we're in this, people are going to be a little bit more accepting. It's about the message and about the content, and not necessarily about the quality.
You're right. At this point, we're just thankful to get it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, just look at the news.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, every people are like from their own living room. Like I was talking about David Lynch earlier. One thing he's done that's become like a little daily thing. I'll just like with my cup of coffee, you know, a Twin Peaks style, I'll watch these little David Lynch weather reports that he does every day. It's literally just the weather in his corner of LA. It affects me in no way at all. But like, you know, it's been nice. He just sits there with his own phone. He's like, it's pretty sunny. What the fuck day is it? I don't know. You know, it's just a nice way to start the day. You know, a little routine. Because I think routine has also become like kind of important when you're stuck inside to a point, you know.
A weather report. I might have to do that. A weather report.
Yeah, a weather report.
I'm trying to come up with like simpler things to do to get. I mean, I'm trying to get like more than 2 views a video. So
sure,
it's a struggle. It's a struggle out here. The struggle's real,
dude. It is.
But yeah, so if you had one last point, or one main bit of advice for our viewers, what would that be?
Just use this time to your advantage. It's easy to get caught up in, I'm just going to order food and play video games because that's awesome. But like, I just use this time to further whatever you're going to make next. Like if you're a creative person, now's the time to just think so hard on what you're going to do. So when the time comes to actually do it, you're more prepared than you've ever been. That's really the best advice I can give. It's all I'm trying to do. Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, it is important to not waste time. And I mean, so many different productions or so many different, things that I've worked on where the most important thing you cannot get back is time. Right. So, it's just time wasted. You can make money back. Right. You can replace gear, you can replace things, but time is one thing you cannot. I mean, I know we talked about Primer and Back to the Future, but you can't go back in time and fix it, man. No way. And we're being like, even though, everything is more or less horrible right now, we are being gifted with more free time than a lot of people have ever had. Yeah. And once we all start going back to work every day and all this stuff, and that everything gets back to normal and people are going out more on weekends, that time you would dedicate to your script, to your story, just sort of evaporates. But right now it's just there.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, any socials, links, plugs you want to put out there?
Yeah, sure. You can check out all of my stuff, a lot of my short films and music videos I've made at my website, which is gypsycabstudios.com. And you can check out all the podcast stuff for Camp Nightmare at campnightmare.com. And we're on all the podcast apps, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, all that good stuff. We're on Instagram, Twitter. Instagram, we're at camp_nightmare. And you can follow me at Gypsy Cab Studios on Instagram.
Awesome. Well, Jordan, I can't thank enough for joining me on Zombie SquadCast. And today was officially the first live streamed episode. So it was, yeah.
Yeah.
So
thanks for having me, man. It's awesome.
Well, thanks for joining me. And it was awesome. And I think everything turned out well. I wasn't watching it, but I'm sure it came out all right.
Went great for me.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, to my viewers out there, like, subscribe, share, comment, ring the bell for notifications, thumbs up if you loved it, and check us out next time.